Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. Today I am hosting an AMA with Josh from Credo. He's their COO. I'm the CEO of Coinmetro. We're going to have to jump right into it because we've got a lot of questions already rolling in. I think this is going to be one of the better AMAs I've hosted in the frequent time. No pressure, Josh. I'm going to let Josh. I'm going to let Josh introduce himself. I'll do a quick intro for those of you who don't know us, and then we're going to jump right in. I'll ask a few questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So Josh, mic's yours.
Super stuff, man. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been one of those venues that I've always wanted to get on for a while. I've been watching you do your thing for a few years now, so it's super cool to be here. So I'm Josh Goodbody. I'm the COO here at Credo. My background is originally as a financial markets lawyer, so I'm not going to bore you with all of that, but I've been very much deeply in crypto since 2017. I've worked at places like Huobi Global, first as a lawyer, general counsel, then as heading up their institutional business, building out global teams for them, and more recently at Binance, really spearheading the European growth of the Binance group and doing fun stuff like helping them get set up in different countries. So I've been, super deep in the crypto space for a long time. And for me, all things infrastructure related have always resonated. And I know you as a builder and an entrepreneur in the crypto space have faced the same growing pains. So I'm super excited today to be telling you a little bit about some of the cool stuff that we're building that is in the infrastructure space, but is so much more than that. So we'll dive into that in a bit.
Awesome. So thanks, Josh. So I guess nobody probably knows this. Maybe somebody does that's watching. I don't know. But so RX Head of Legal is actually a childhood friend of Josh. And I met Josh, I think 3 years ago now, maybe 3-4 years ago at this point. I think he was at Huobi at the time. So obviously we joked around about how horrible Huobi was because, at least I thought it was horrible. Josh didn't, but I thought it was.
I loved it.
He loved it. I thought it was horrible. So I made that known. I had to, of course, make fun of him when he was working at Binance. But now I can't make fun of him anymore. So now we can actually have a real conversation about Credo, which I really like, actually. And that's why we're doing this today. So I'm Kevin Murcko, CEO at Coinmetro. My background comes from FX, foreign exchange. Was in that business in that market for 20 plus years. Crypto kind of seemed to me like an extension of FX. It's very similar in many ways. People call these things currencies. They're traded like currencies. And it just got to the point in FX where it was monotonous to me. And this market offered so much more opportunity and innovation. The FX market hasn't been innovative since 1993. So before it even existed, literally. And so this was something for me that was quite exciting, and it still is. And that's why I'm here. There's great companies like Credo. There's great companies like CoinMetro, companies that are trying to push the envelope, creating solutions that actually solve problems rather than create new ones. So I think that's amazing. I think we're kind of headed in the same direction, even though we're doing different things, which is cool. So I'm going to start with a question that I've been getting about Credo. On Twitter and across most of my social media accounts and Telegram. I think I had one guy berating me to make sure that I asked questions specific to tokenomics. That people were confused.
These Twitter guys, aren't they?
Yeah.
There's no hiding on Twitter.
Persuasive. Yeah. I try to control my animal instincts, but a lot of times when I get berated on Twitter, I got to respond. So, but this guy was nice enough, asking about just how how the token will work. Is it inflationary? Is it deflationary? What's going to happen? Tokenomics. So, give us an overview of tokenomics. Let's start there. I think there's going to be a few questions about that anyway, so to give you a good time.
Yeah. Happy to. So maybe before I do that, I'm just going to give a quick overview of what Credo is, so people kind of get the overall macro picture of this. So the Credo Network it's a fully distributed infrastructure solution for custody and settlement of digital assets. And we've taken a completely radical approach to custody. And as you say, philosophically, the approach that we've taken is not to replicate the existing structures of traditional finance, the existing traditional structures that have existed, these point solutions, these vendor solutions. And we've aimed to remove all of these single points of failure by putting custody onto a distributed layer 2 blockchain. And that blockchain is called the Credo chain. So that Credo chain is then paired with the next generation of multi-party computation, which is called trustless consensus-based MPC, which operates on a network of nodes. And really, if you boil that down, what this represents is putting custody onto a distributed network. So you no longer have to worry about one single vendor or one single solution. And you strip out all of the risk that comes with that. And we think that, having this amazing programmable money that we have, this, these crypto assets that are distributed instantly across a blockchain, why would you lock these things up in cold storage vaults? Why would you abstract and remove all of the beautiful qualities that these crypto assets have? They should be held on chain and accessible on chain, but protected by state-of-the-art cryptography. And state-of-the-art cryptography, there's one gold standard, and that's multi-party computation. And everyone is slowly realizing that in the market. If you're not using MPC in some way, shape, or form, you're really missing out on this huge advance in cryptographic technology. So what we've done is we've removed private key risk, we've removed sharding risk, all the kind of vulnerabilities that arise when you use multi-sig solutions. And out of the box, by putting custody onto a distributed layer 2 blockchain, pairing it with a layer 2 settlement solution, you've got some amazing cross-chain functionality that institutions can use, but also retail users. We make this thing open and available to everyone. So as a business, we've been building this for nearly 3 years now. I think that's one thing that many people don't know. We've been building this for 3 years, silently and steadily. We've been live on mainnet for over 18 months now. We've been battle testing this thing so that we can walk into large financial institutions and say, guys, this thing works. We've been testing it. We've audited it multiple times. We've been transacting billions of dollars across it. And we're starting to bear those fruits today. So we've got over $6 billion of assets on the network. We're seeing over 50,000 unique transactions happening across the layer 2 network. Every time we add a new layer 1 asset and integrate that into the Credo network, we get this plethora of new activity from these communities. So we're building amazing connections with some of the biggest layer 1 blockchains in the space, from the Terra folks. Big shout out to them. They are just innovators and builders. Avalanche, Solana, Binance Smart Chain, all of that's coming very soon. And so we're really at the cusp, we think, of this amazing Cambrian explosion of activity on the network. And it's really exciting for us. So to the question that you were asked, I think we want to take this head on. Inevitably, when token prices change and when they maybe fall, or they did, people start asking questions. And we've seen that in the market recently, with the crash in the traditional markets, crypto tends to act as this weird proxy for tech stocks. It kind of dips when tech stocks dip. So we've seen that in the Credo price as well. And a lot of that has caused questions about the tokenomics, around the overall inflation within the Credo tokenomics model. So let's deal with this head on. So I think a lot of the confusion that exists right now relates to the ecosystem fund that we have, which is 11% of the token supply. So that's a really large amount of the overall token supply. And that vests slowly over the course of 2022. So you're seeing a large amount of tokens vesting in the course of 2022, but these are ecosystem tokens, right? They're not entering into circulating supply. They're going to be used very selectively, very sparingly. They're going to be used to incentivize growth on the ecosystem, given to teams that are building really cool products and functionality. So that 11% of the token supply really skews the numbers significantly. So really what I want to do is clarify the facts and boil this down to really the core essence of it. So the next token release that we have is on the 14th of January next year. So on that date, there's an increase of 0.24% in the circulating supply. So a very, very small amount. And tokens vest on a weekly basis throughout the course of 2022. So by the end of 2022, the circulating supply is going to be around 305 million Credo tokens. So that's an absolute increase of 26.1%. So that feels like a lot, but in the reality of things, if you look at all these other layer 1 projects that are out there, and even some layer 2 projects, as an inflationary measure, that's actually quite low. And we combat that in quite significant ways. We're very conscious to make sure that as the token circulating supply increases, that we're bringing new ways to make the token even more usable, make it more utility, make it more widely distributed in the space. We're doing that in key concrete ways, like, for example, implementing very early next year, and we'll drop that date very soon, but not just yet, a token buyback scheme, which is where all of the income that the validators generate on the network actually initiates wholesale buybacking of Credo tokens on the secondary market. So there's this direct connection between the activity that's happening on the Credo network, the fees that are generated, and the amount of Credo tokens that then get purchased on the secondary market. So we're creating that direct link, which is going to be really exciting and will increase Credo token demand significantly. But in addition to that, we've got some things up our sleeve that are, I guess you'd call them inflation busting. I don't want to drop that just yet. I think we're going to talk about that in the course of December, in the course of January as well. But we've got a lot planned, and this is very much the beginning of our journey. So don't listen to the FUD. Listen to the facts, and we're on Twitter as well. So ping us questions as they come.
Great answer. So just to reiterate on one thing, because I think most people in this, well, maybe they don't, but most protocols that exist in crypto have some sort of infrastructure fund where they raise a fund, usually with their own tokens, sometimes with external capital as well. They use that to incentivize usage of their protocol, right? So you have the Ethereum Foundation, you have Solana that has its own foundation, Algorand has a foundation. They do these things to incentivize people to use their protocol, which increases the amount of throughput, it increases the amount of people using it, which increases the amount of fees, which increases the amount of money that goes out to miners and or nodes, etc. So you mentioned that this 11% that's vested over 2022, this kind of inflationary push, I guess that can be considered something of a infrastructure fund because you're using that to incentivize.
Totally. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that ecosystem fund, that 11% actually vests over 4 years. So
Okay.
It's a long vesting schedule. But even when those tokens do vest, they don't automatically enter into supply. The protocol, the network, which actually everyone who holds Credo tokens at some point next year will have a say in. So we build out the governance model that enables people to vote on proposals that are brought to the ecosystem about what we do with these tokens, right? It's not like us unilaterally will be dishing these things out and saying, here's some for you, you build this, you build that. It's going to be a community-driven, DAO-like process where people get to vote on where those tokens go. And just as we see in other ecosystems today, you bring a proposal to the community and people vote on it. And it's really as simple as that. And the tokens that will be available from that ecosystem fund will be used to foster innovation, essentially get people to build really interesting products and use cases on the Credo network. And I'll give you one great example that's happening right now, today in El Salvador, in conjunction with Banco Hipotecario, which is the state bank in El Salvador, the Open Banking Project, the pioneers of open banking in Europe, and API3. We launched something called the Bitcoin Bankathon, which really has one goal: to foster community innovation in El Salvador and the wider Latin American region, to build really powerful use cases for Bitcoin. What can you do with Bitcoin that will change people's lives? So we've created a prize pool for folks that can build great solutions, but also a grant program where people who've got these great ideas that they're building will fund those out for a period of 1 year. And we're using the ecosystem tokens for really impactful things like that will, as you say, get activity going on the network. So that's the North Star, getting people building stuff on the network that creates meaningful value.
Yeah, and that's either going to cost money from treasury or it's going to cost tokens. There really isn't, to be honest, a major difference. It's going to cost the company something, but at the end of the day, using those tokens fosters more awareness, which fosters growth, which should help everybody that holds those tokens in terms of price discovery. So I think you can kind of those, at least that 11%, I wouldn't even say they're inflationary, to be honest.
I agree. I know people
they're not necessarily deflationary either, but it's
right.
it's about growing awareness and growing use of the protocol at the end of the day. Very good. The Bitcoin I read a bit about the Bitcoin Bankathon. It's interesting. I mean, obviously, one great thing you can do is mine Bitcoin with a volcano. I just want to throw that out there, Josh, just in case you needed some ideas.
I mean, what an idea, right?
Yeah.
Like, you cannot get better than that.
Yeah.
Wonderful natural resource of heat, of power, that produces an enormous amount of electricity that you can use to mine Bitcoin and put that Bitcoin into the country's coffers and do cool stuff like build schools. I mean, what an awesome idea, right? And in a way, I think he's onto something. I think the El Salvadorian government are onto something there. They've opened this Pandora's box with an idea that is so wild, but so
they are. I think I don't want to go too far off on a tangent here, but I think we're seeing a lot of political movements that are so far outside of what normal politics is And some of those might be good, some of them might be bad, but it's actually a trajectory that the world needs, because obviously your standard politics don't work. I think the last 100 years, 200 years has proven that. And we're finally getting to a point, whether you agree or don't agree with some things that happen on the world stage, we are definitely expanding what, a book from 100 years ago of what politics was, and a book 20 years from now, they're going to be very different books. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, radical solutions for radical times. Why not? I think, as you say, like, we have done the things from the book for a long, long time. There are things you do and things you don't do. And why shouldn't a nation say, okay, we're going to put a bit of our money in Bitcoin and speculate on it, instead of speculate on something else in another sector that's a traditional equity investment?
Or literally, like most countries do, is invest their money in US dollars, which is essentially what the vast majority of that money probably would have went to, hadn't it been to mine Bitcoin. It would have been sitting in bonds making 1%, a maximum, maybe 0.65% for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
So
there's a
makes
better
sense
way.
to me. Yeah, there is definitely a better way. So tokenomics, I think we'll probably get a few more questions on it, but at the end of the day, I think it's interesting because I first talked to the guys even before Josh was part of Credo. I had a conversation with them, and I reiterated the fact that for years, literally for maybe a year before that, 2 years before that, I had been trying to find something in the market that allowed for some form of non-custodial deposits with centralized exchanges. Because at the end of the day, the vast majority of people that go to a DEX are going there. Let's say a majority of people that go to a DEX go there because they simply want to have their own, my keys, my crypto. But DEXs have their own problems, and centralized order books versus decentralized order books, all these things come into play. And I remember telling the same thing to Ledger Wallet 4 years ago, and they told me who would use that service. And so I hung up because I thought that question was so ridiculous. I didn't understand why I should give an answer to it. In traditional finance, usually people with money use tripartite agreements. They have non-custodial agreements because they don't want to give their money to a brokerage. They don't want to give their money they want their money to stay in an account in their name. And the problem with that is only rich people can do it. But this is crypto now. So rich people and poor people and middle-class people all have the same rights. If you gain access to the market, you have the same rights as everyone else. And I think that's the most amazing thing about crypto, to be honest. And I think Credo is pushing the boundary there to make sure that some of those services that were historically only available to a very select few can potentially be available to everyone.
Yeah, no, totally. You've hit the nail on the head. My background is as originally a commodities lawyer. And when firms trade in the commodities markets, they don't move cash from their bank account to an exchange. They use some kind of financing solution, and someone gives them the money at a cost, small percentage cost, gives them the money to be able to trade, or the exposure to be able to trade on an exchange. So nothing actually moves until it needs to move, until you have to settle what's due and payable. Now, in the crypto world, we've somehow thought it's normal and acceptable for everything you do to be pre-funded. You've got to move every single dollar, Bitcoin, Ethereum from your wallet to an exchange's wallet. And that's not the way that traditional finance works. So is there a better way to do this? Well, we absolutely believe there is. And the way that we're trying to completely shake up the industry and completely change the game is by saying to exchanges, and we're fortunate enough to be invested in by some of them, the ones that have faced these growing problems as the industry has grown, by saying to them, okay, what you can do is you can have your users have a self-custodial wallet that they control fully. But you, through this layer 2 that we operate, you can connect to that wallet. The user gives you a right to direct debit funds out of that wallet when they're due and payable. And that's an on-chain right. So the user can't cancel that and can't go, I don't want to pay my exchange what's due and payable. You can't do that. That's not how it works. It's a layer 2. It's a blockchain-based immutable right for things that are due and payable when they're due and payable. So you can trade using the collateral that you've got in your self-custodial wallet on that exchange, open up positions, and when they get liquidated or when there's initial margin top-ups or variation margin due, you can sweep those funds out of that self-custodial wallet. And that enables you to not take credit risk to the exchange, enables the exchange to not have to take more credit risk by taking more and more users' funds that they have to increasingly put convoluted security systems on top of. and it enables much more capital efficient ways to trade. So if you can imagine, let's hope we're talking and doing this AMA in 12 months time, I'll be able to say to you, you've got multiple exchanges connected to this one wallet, where you can have all your activity connected to that one self-custodial wallet and your portfolio margining across all your various venues. So you're not having to have multiple pots of collateral with multiple venues, with multiple capital inefficiencies. Every time you move assets to those exchanges, you pay layer one fees. You're subjected to the delays on certain blockchains when they get congested. Forget all of that. There's a better way to do this. And you know, when these guys, when the founders of Credo, Anthony Foy and Brian Spector, when they pitched this idea to me in 2018, when I was at Huobi, I thought they were bonkers. I thought they were mad because I didn't know how you could do this. But then they showed me that it can be done. And I saw this thing working in real time. And I saw this atomic movement of funds between a self-custodial wallet and a venue, enabling you to kind of de-risk the entire life cycle of a transaction. And I thought, right, that's it, I'm sold. This is better than anything that exists in traditional finance today. And we're using the blockchain for all of the beauty and purpose that the blockchain brings us. Removing middlemen, removing counterparty risk, and enabling people, regardless of where you come from or how much money you've got in the bank, to do everything that you want to do with your funds and your money. And it ain't just available to institutions and corporates. So we're going to be piloting that with 2 derivatives exchanges first, and show hopefully that this is a super powerful solution that doesn't rely on credit lines, doesn't rely on people lending you money and charging you an interest rate on it, doesn't rely on a centralized custodian attesting that they will be, you know, acting as the middleman in the transaction, cutting all that out and going straight to the source, you and the exchange you trade on. And once we've proven that, we think this is going to get rolled out widely. And, you know, Coinmetro is a great additional string to the bow for us, and we'd love to get that live once you can see that it works, an absolute treat.
Absolutely. I'm waiting with breathless anticipation. I think just that alone, even if Credo did nothing else, and that was the only feature that Credo offered, it makes you guys a double-digit billion worth company in a very short amount of time. I think people need to understand that when you look at now, you guys don't speak about price, but I don't work for Credo, so I'm not going to talk about price specifically, but I just want to give people an idea here that when you look at assets, this is just general advice. When you look at assets across any market, obviously you look at competition, you look to see, what assets are competing with other assets. When you're buying stocks, you're looking at a general basket of different companies within an industry, et cetera. Here, you're looking at an industry which is custody and crypto, which is a relatively small industry. There's 4 or 5 players. There's no other tokenized player. That's it. I mean, I think I can end there. There's not really much else to say. The fact that a company, to me, it's almost, I think back in 2017, a company, if they didn't want to tokenize, they had their reasons. They thought maybe there was going to be a legal issue. They thought potentially there might be a regulatory issue. I think we know now that those issues don't exist if you do things correctly. And if you're in a tokenized space and you're not tokenized, to me, you lose a few points on your my assessment scale, even just to invest in a company, you lose points because you're in this industry. You should be able to utilize the benefits of this industry to benefit not only your company, but your users and just the industry as a whole. So to me, I think Credo is an easy choice to add. That's why we listed it. And that's why, our clients are excited to see you guys expand and conquer the world. And we absolutely, I'd love to be retail centric gateway onto Credo's platform. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, we're huge fans. And I think together there's a lot we can do. We're not going to be dropping any alpha on what we're going to hopefully do together today. We're not going to spoil the surprise, but there's a lot happening behind the scenes, and we've got a lot of really interesting discussions. And I think to your point, Kevin, you're absolutely right. You have the ability as a company in this space to give people a bit of a stake in what you're doing. And if you're a traditional company that's not in the crypto space, very rarely do folks get the ability to get skin in the game, unless you do crowdfunding of some kind, like Free Trade in the UK. They've got millions of people involved in their business, and that's such a great thing. But that's the exception to the norm. Whereas in crypto, you're able to get people stakeholders in what you're doing, and you guys did that from very early on. And you've got this hardcore base of followers that that absolutely love what you're doing. That's
it's
because
all community is a major aspect in this industry, especially I think especially for those that come from traditional finance. Look, traditional finance is cutthroat. So you have your colleagues, you know people, but when it comes down to it, everybody's competing for the same clients. They're using the same technology. They have the same software, the same access to prices. There really isn't, it's such a cutthroat industry that you might have camaraderie in your small circle, but across the industry, it doesn't exist. And I think crypto, up to this point at least, still has this essence of even not just community as far as clients, but community as an industry is concerned. We want the industry to succeed. Those of us that want the industry to succeed want our competitors to a certain extent to succeed as well. Because if they don't, as long as they're doing the things the right way, we want them to succeed because they're going to help everyone succeed in the end. And the great thing about tokens is you can crowdfund and you can get money through traditional crowdfunding, but that means people are waiting on dividends for the most part. There's no liquid market to go and sell your crowdfunded equity shares. In fact, I own a company that's trying to do that. That's called Ignium, but there's really you're not talking about a wide, you can't just go and sell them. You're waiting, and you might be waiting years.
And then when you do sell them, the broker takes a percentage point of it. And you're like, hold on, I've waited years for that, but I'm paying God knows how much to sell these things.
Yeah, exactly. And here it's different. You have, you potentially have a very liquid market that your clients can sell into anytime they want. And that is a massive benefit for those that have never invested, in equity in a company or bonds or, private bonds, obviously not public. You don't know the pain that it is to invest in something that's doing surprisingly well. You invested at a 10 million valuation and now it's worth 500 million, but you still can't sell your shares. You can't find a buyer. It's tough. So tokenization is an amazing thing. And I'm glad that you guys went down the road of tokenization because it's an amazing business model. It's amazing as you build out the tokenomics, and I'm sure they're going to get built out and built out and built out. I mean, tokenomics are kind of like a 5-year business plan. It's this now, tomorrow it's this, next year it's this. It's great that you can, expand on the ideas as you build new products, new features, new et cetera.
Well, that's it, right? So you fold the token into all these new things that you develop. So it's a constantly evolving story. And, one of the questions that we were asked during the initial token sale that we did was, your token model is 50 years. And we say, we built this tokenomics model across 50 years because we don't think we're going anywhere. We don't think the industry is going anywhere. It's like saying to someone, hundreds of years ago, stocks, you've built this model out for what? For 100 years, 200 years? Yes, absolutely, because you're still going to be there in 100 years. And we think crypto is going to be here, bigger, better, and more widespread than it is now in 50 years. I mean, God knows where we'll be in 50 years. Maybe crypto will be the norm. We hope so. And that's why we built out the model to be, to have that longevity. And everything that we do from a product perspective, even partnerships that we're doing, have a deep connection to the tokenomics and a deep connection to, increasing the overall utility and the governance that comes of the network with a token. And, governance is a really complicated thing. And people have built protocols that have governance that gives people a real stake in it. And others have built models where it just doesn't work. It's more siloed substance. And we're not rushing into it. And I think a lot of people are saying, well, where's the governance bit of it? We can't do anything with this. Our message is, well, you're right. You can't do anything from a governance perspective today, but you will. And we're not rushing into it because we don't want to have a model that's fundamentally broken, where all the investors that we have the majority voting power over everything we do. There has to be an element of equality that, kind of abstracts and pulls out certain weightings that people have. We don't want that. We want something that is purely community driven. So it takes a bit of time for us.
You also need to think about kind of the norms of crypto, which is, if you go back to the Bitcoin white paper, it's about people having equal. You don't want the guy who owns the most tokens to be able to outweigh or outvote everyone else. So those things are not easy. Those type of methodologies where you have a governance that is probably fair is not that easy. Well, it's not that easy. It's not easy at all to put that together. I mean, to be honest, I don't necessarily know one that I would say is anywhere near perfect yet. And I think we're probably years away from figuring out, not only from a technical standpoint, but also from a use case standpoint. How do you make this fair for everyone? If I have 10 tokens and this guy has 1 million, how do you make that, how does that governance work? Am I just voting for nothing with my 10 tokens? Or is there something that, So yeah, but you mentioned, which we'll get into questions now because we're about a half an hour in. I guess we better get some questions, everybody else. But the new traditional, I think, is a good way to talk about crypto. This isn't the new traditional finance. Those that don't realize it yet, NGMI, right? Never going to make it. I mean, it's over. I think most people that are in the know, or at least are knowledgeable enough that are in traditional finance, now realize that this is in 20, 30 years, when my youngest daughter got her PhD or whatever, and I ask her to define traditional finance, she might not say the word crypto. I don't know if the word crypto survives as nomenclature for what we're doing, but this will be traditional finance. She will talk about decentralization. She will talk about democratized and tokenized, and all these different things will be part of the narrative. They have to be. They're just better. They're a better solution. There's no reason why they won't be.
Yeah, you're right. And traditional finance will get there, but they're not going to bang this drum, on the roofs of their investment banks and say, everything we've been doing is really shit. And this is the better way to do it. They're going to just slowly and steadily build and build and build. And then it's just going to be there. Yeah. And, one great example, Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan, for years, the big bear in the room, just saying, crypto's bullshit. We don't like this. We don't like that. We don't think there's any.
Never a fad. It's never going to work.
It's going to go away. And within it, now they're building multiple multi-million-dollar crypto businesses, and they've slowly and steadily done it. And
I'm sure they were when he was bad mouthing it. They were also doing it.
Oh, they absolutely.
There is an absolute element to you want people.
A bit of psyops there, right? There's a bit of kind of. Yeah.
But that brings up something, a sideline. I'm just going to mention it. We can talk about this offline, but one of those protocols you guys need to look at, I think, is Qredo. So Qredo. So guys who built JPM coin, but very interesting, and I think it definitely fits the Credo MO. So
we've had our eye on them. Yeah,
we should have a three-way call about those guys at some point. But,
totally. Like let's watch them build. Yeah, cool.
Let's jump into some questions. Let's see. All right, we kind of touched on this one, but Duncan was the first guy to jump in with a question, so I'm going to honor Duncan with the first question we posed. So we talked about this a bit, but how do you think how easily do you think the not your keys, not your crypto mantra will die off? Oof. Or will it die off? I guess might be even a better question.
I think when people understand that for the first time in recent history, a financial asset that you actually control. And unless you're someone that buys a ton of gold and silver and you put it under your bed and you hide it in your pantry.
Peter Schiff, you listening?
Yeah, exactly. God knows how much gold is hidden in Peter Schiff's house. I wouldn't want to be him. But, I think that resonates with people, the fact that you have this asset that's worth something that you can control and own yourself. And you don't have to rely on a bank. And only in recent history have we had banks that more or less don't fail regularly. They fail, but they don't fail regularly. 20 years ago, banks were failing left, right, and center all the time. And it was normal for people to just hoard their cash and whack it under the bed and hope that nothing happens to it. So I don't think it's going to die off, because I think it resonates with kind of our innate sense of what's right. Something that is mine, I have control over. And I think that isn't going to go anywhere. It might evolve. It might evolve as holding your own keys becomes more easy. And we think, and we hope we're doing our bit in that, i.e. making the not your keys, not your crypto piece usable by all the magic of cryptography and multi-party computation. You can actually own your private keys, but have them protected with MPC. We think we're playing one part in that, but equally it's choice. Some people want to put it on a hardware device and bury that hardware device in their garden. If that's your thing, that's your thing. There's going to be choice for everyone. So I don't think it'll die off, but I think it'll evolve over time.
Yeah, I would echo pretty much all those comments. I would say there's definitely a UX issue collectively speaking around. There still is. It was much worse, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, etc. It's gradually getting better. Until that UX issue is completely solved, there's definitely going to be a wide swath of the population that doesn't understand or doesn't want to spend the time to understand. Thus, they might not understand the benefits either. So they need a more centralized solution.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be other people, like those that currently buy gold, or others that wish they could buy gold but just can't, or just have nowhere to store it, because where do you put a bunch of gold if you don't want to pay if to put it in a storage somewhere in Switzerland, put it under your bed is probably not the best solution. And so I think that the mantra may die off, meaning you might not see it on Twitter every other day like you do now, but I think it's choice. So there will be people, there will be solutions for everyone. And as the industry evolves, things like bank insurance, whether that's the ombudsman or the FDIC or whatever, will exist for crypto, will exist for regulated exchanges, et cetera. So it's part of that kind of anxiety of and solutions like Credo that allow for non-custodial deposits. All these things will reduce the anxiety for people. And thus, I think the mantra may die down. But I think these choice, it's very important that that choice never goes away. You should, just like you should be able to choose between having your money in a government distributed currency or potentially a privately distributed currency. You should have the choice whether you hold that private key, in your safe in your house, or you let somebody else do it for a fee. I think those things will probably remain. I don't know what percentage beyond, what side of the fence will have the bigger percentage over time. But yeah, I think the mantra may end up dying down because right now it's an easy mantra because, you see a bunch of exchange gets hacked and everybody comes on and says, well, not your piece, not your crypto, right? So it's easy now. It's going to get more difficult for that to be kind of something to stand on in the future, I think. But the choice is important. All right, we have a few questions I think we've already covered, so I'm going to run through those. This one, let's see, another one from Duncan. Duncan, 2 in a row, man. Nice job. Is Credo aware of Parsec and potential synergies of adopting their tech into Credo services?
Yeah, Parsec. I mean, you guys kind of pioneered their distribution, right? You were heavily involved in.
We pushed them to create a token. I don't know if it wasn't for Coinmetro, there might not be a Parsec token. So
no, I remember, keenly watching that launch that you guys had, and it's been such a great journey for the Parsec team. We've known some of the team for a while. Very impressed with what they've been building. I think the approach that Credo takes is completely agnostic from a solutions perspective. If there's value in it, we're going to integrate with it. We're going to work with it. And whether that is a ZK roll-up, whether that is a centralized custodial solution, a centralized exchange, or a project like Parsec, there is enormous value in us both contributing to and working with. So I think, we've gone from, as an organization, when I joined, we were about 20 people. Now we're over 100 people. So we have a few more hands on deck to be able to do more things. And one of the things that we're really working on is building this kind of coalition of the brave, and whether those are layer ones, whether they're layer 2 projects, whether they're existing token projects, we're going to be working with a coalition of them to do some pretty cool stuff together next year. So Parsec is definitely interesting. Big fans of what they're doing. We'll have to see how that pans out.
I think that's a great answer. It's nice and democratized as well. I know a keyword we talked about a few times, but I think we like to work with companies with the same mindset. So just because you like what someone's doing doesn't mean you're going to work with them. But at the same time, obviously, you're only going to look to work with people who at least share some of the same vision. You're not going to work with somebody who's a complete antithesis of what you're trying to do. I think I also obviously know the people at Parsec. We were big fans of them right from the beginning, still are. And there's definitely some crossover. So I think as both companies expand, it's probably inevitable. I see both services as something that at the end of the day, if you're depending on how you are involved in the crypto market, they're both needed. And whether they work together directly or you're just using them as a person, as an individual, as a business, they're probably going to work together one way, shape, or form, indirectly or directly for sure. All right, we have a couple price questions here. We're just going to breeze by those. I don't want to post this one, but I'm posting anyway because why not? Credo listed at Binance rocket ship. I guess that's a question of Credo getting listed at Binance.
I mean, I've never heard that question before.
It's probably the first time right here on the show.
Yeah, totally. I've never heard that before. Credo, first of all, we believe adoption will speak for itself, right? And adoption leads to listings. And we certainly can't speculate on who will list us. It's out of our hands in many respects, but we are on a steady path towards working with a number of the leading exchanges. And we're slowly, knocking down doors and getting progress. And I'm not going to comment on exact names, but we're big fans of Binance. We're big fans of the BSC community. We've got some pretty cool stuff lined up with the BSC space. Again, I'm going to be killed by my marketing team for saying that. They know me already. It is what it is. And, we'll see where things go. 2022 is going to be a good year for us, we think.
Look, Binance is a business. Binance has a methodology for how they select things they list. When you fall into that category, fall into that framework, you get listed. And undoubtedly, as Credo grows, they're going to be listed on Binance. They're going to be listed on every exchange imaginable as they grow. That is inevitable. You can't stop someone from listing you. So even if they didn't want to get listed there, they probably will be at some point in the future. I think that's inevitable. Arthur Santos has a question. Do you guys have anything in the works to address the high transfer fees? I've been wanting to stake my Credo for a while, and these fees prevent me from doing so.
Yeah, this is a very good question because, Credo token is an ERC20. So when folks want to move that into the Credo network to benefit from what's called our auto staking program, which is where you just deposit it into the wallet. Whilst it's in the wallet, it accrues staking income. So people want to be able to move their Credo tokens from whatever exchange they're on to their Credo network account. But in doing so, frequently, some of the exchanges do charge quite high fees. And it's difficult because exchanges don't want to have to constantly change their fees depending on Ethereum gas costs. So many of them just implement this blanket fee. It could be $15, it could be $25. They just implement this flat fee, which covers them regardless of what's happening in the Ethereum gas space. So we totally hear you. We think that in the future, we will have direct bridges into many of these exchanges. So you will no longer have to be exposed to the layer 1 fee. You'll be able to move it across Credo's layer 2. But right now, it is a reality for many tokens in the crypto space. And we totally hear that. We want to be able to reward you when you move your asset onto the Credo network. Part of that is the auto staking program we have. Additional things are coming in 2022 that involve what we call custodial mining. I won't say any more at this point, but we have ways to make it up for folks that go through the hard yards of getting their asset onto the Credo network. So it's a problem everyone faces, and it sucks. And there is a better way, and the better way is layer 2s. So as we kind of get that adoption going, we hope that we'll be able to help people.
I would add that at least our own plans are, even before there might be a bridge to Credo's layer 2, we will increase the amount of things we're doing with Credo. We have created staking programs for things like Cadena, Flux, etc., which basically reduce those costs to zero because we manage bulk transfers on the layer 1. And so I think regardless, there will be a solution at Coinmetro and eventually probably at other exchanges as well once bridges are enabled. But I will say this: if you believe in it, this is just old bald guy advice. If you believe in an asset that pays passive income and you believe it's going to go up over time, then those fees probably shouldn't be that scary to you. If you're in it for the short term, staking probably isn't for you anyway.
Yeah.
Just to be honest. So a longer term investor, I think, will take those fees on the chin, regardless of what they are, of the expectation that that asset is going to do well over time. And, I think people have to get out of the mentality of day trading and, moon syndrome and get into kind of the Warren Buffett strategy, which is you buy things that eventually over time will pay you 10 times what you paid for them in passive income on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
That's what Warren Buffett never picked the top, never picked the bottom. He's not a great trader. He just picked assets that paid lots of dividends. And over time, he got a lot of them.
Value investing. It compounds. Yeah. It compounds. It accumulates.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult psychological shift for people that are used to day trading, but it is the real, what we have seen, and this ain't financial advice, but what we have seen is it is the ticket to accumulating wealth. Not having that short-term mentality. And it's difficult. I get it. You see the token price moving. You want to do something. You want to sell this, buy that. But in the long term, value investing makes sense.
Absolutely. No one made money doing hard work. No one's ever made wealth by doing hard work. So you can think of passive income as, not doing hard work. So at the end of the day, you have to do a lot of hard work to get to the point you can actually earn money from passive income opportunities. But you need at least 7. You got to hit 7 passive income, funnels by the time you reach probably your 50s to really be, or 40s. Depends on how early you want to, break into retirement. But I think it is very difficult. It's the reason why most people don't make money trading. It's the reason why most people don't make money in investing historically. It's because it's very hard to change that mindset. But take our advice. that is probably the first thing you need to do. Fees shouldn't matter so much. And that's why Ethereum still is Ethereum.
Yeah.
People complain. You notice a lot of people complain about the fees, but at the end of the day, they still have the market share. Why is that? It's because the people that actually move most of the large amount of assets already have changed that mindset. And the fees don't bother them so much anymore. So cool. I like that question. That was a good question. Ironically, let's see how ironic Lee is. How will KYC work with Credo? Will users have to manually do KYC for every exchange Credo supports, or will they in some way Credo streamline that?
Nice. So one of the things we've got planned is to release something called the KYC Hub, which is not a mandatory KYC process or step within the Credo network, but it enables you to establish an identity within the Credo network. And one of the things that's coming in the pipeline is the establishment for the Web3 economy of identity standards. They're called the W3C standards. And what that means is if you want to interact with other platform services that have adopted those standards, like Meta, like some of the other large social media giants in the space, if you want to interact with them as a solution, you've got to be able to have some kind of identity certification that you can take with you when you go to different places. So we want to give people the choice to have some kind of identity on the Credo network. Now, how they do that is going to be up to them. They can choose to use a centralized KYC provider that will give them some kind of certification they can carry with them throughout the network. They can even use some of the existing on-chain identity solutions that are out there in the market. And we want to give people that kind of marketplace, that choice to sign up to the certification or the solution that they think works best for them. Now then, the way it will work is once you've got your Credo account, you've got a certification of some kind, you're then able to connect your wallet to an exchange that you have already gone through the process of onboarding with. Now, there may be exchanges that adopt this quite innovative solution where you let people take with them their own identity details and then become certified and verified on that exchange. That will take some time. That doesn't really exist now with most centralized exchanges that run their whole KYC process themselves. So what's more likely to happen in the short term is you have your exchange account with Binance, will be Coinbase, Coinmetro, whoever it is that you've got an account with. And then you can connect your Credo wallet to that exchange, just like another wallet. And the KYC piece might be separate to that. It might enable you to interact with service providers that are on the Credo network. We've got some pretty cool stuff planned around products that will be available within the web-based application and outside of the web-based application that all run on the Credo network, where you will need to have an identity of some kind because the provider requires you to have that. Equally, there will be decentralized protocols that do not have some kind of KYC standard that will enable you to interact with them out of your wallet, just like any other wallet solution. So there's going to be a lot of choice.
Absolutely. I think we are probably many years away from having a global identification solution on Web3 or Web4 or Web5 or whatever we may have by the time we get there. But that's actually a good conversation we can have as well in the future, because we do provide KYC services. We already have a service hub built for something very similar to this. But I think it's interesting that you're kind of thinking about two options. One is kind of this, let's call it a KYC service. The other side is just connecting it as any other wallet, meaning that there's it's not necessarily, you've KYC'd already somewhere. You don't need to do it again. You're still able to interact on the network through a bridge or through another. So again, it's another thing about choice, kind of streamlining the service for everybody rather than forcing everybody down a specific pathway, which I think is a good option. But I think that, the whole decentralized identification and or just, the Web3C, as you talked about, is interesting. I hope we get there sooner rather than later. I mean, the idea that every single service provider you use has all of your identity docs, and I think they should just have a Josh and a Kevin NFT.
I mean, I'm down with that. I'm down with that. And then
you present your Kevin or a Josh NFT, and you're in.
And then you're in, And I mean, how cool would that be? A transferable identity document that's an NFT.
Sounds amazing to me.
You just created a pretty cool idea.
I think somebody needs to work
on the market. Yeah.
I don't have any time to work on it, but somebody should. Somebody should start working on that right now. So since this said very important question, I just agreed. So where do we buy merch?
I like it. I like it. Okay, well, we've got merch floating around Latin America right now in different places. You can't buy it, and I don't know if we have plans to sell merch, to be honest with you. I think we'd rather just make it accessible. So we have a set of hoodies, we've got t-shirts, we've got caps, we've got the usual merch that is being designed right now that we will be releasing over a period of time, especially for folks that get involved with us on Twitter. We're going to be giving a lot of the early influencers in the space, you know who you are, some of the merch to be representing, and then we're going to get that, far and wide. So merch is coming. We want to do things a bit differently. We don't just want to have t-shirts and hoodies. We want to have some stuff that is a bit more unique than that as well. But equally, who doesn't love a good hoodie and a t-shirt, right? So we're going to do the full gamut. And actually, what would be cool is if we did CoinMetro, Credo, co-branded stuff. So we can.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready.
We can yeah.
I'll take.
You guys have had great artwork for a long time, so we'd love to get something going with that.
I'll take a Credo branded penthouse in Barcelona. That would work. You can put it everywhere. You put Credo everywhere. I'll just sit in there and do my AMAs.
Just a big queue everywhere.
Huge. Yeah. Lots of very colorful. It'll be a very colorful apartment, but very noticeable. No, but we absolutely should do that. I think having a little fun merch back and forth would be cool. We'd have some fun with that for sure. If you're talking about CoinMetro merch, we actually have a store. It's coinmetro.store. Nice and easy. Check it out. It has to be updated because unfortunately it's not a priority. I wish everything was so much done. Like everything was done, and that would be my only priority because that would be amazing. But it's not. But there's still merch there. You can check it out if you're talking about CoinMetro merch. But we definitely need to do a joint venture here on some merch. I think would be amazing. This is a unique question. So I think this one. What skill set is hardest to recruit for in the crypto space? So I'll let you start on that one, Josh.
I feel we are in a talent war right now. I don't know how you feel. I feel we're in the talent war, right? Like,
absolutely.
The space is attracting the brightest minds in the industry, and they're coming from every sector. We've been interviewing people from, big pharma. We've been interviewing people from aerospace industries. We've been speaking to ex-investment bankers. We've been speaking to people that have spent their life building enterprise open source software. But they're all gravitating towards crypto because it's different, because it's new. It presents all these opportunities. So I think at the moment, if you try and pick a skill set that is hardest to recruit for, I would say it's engineering and development because they're so hotly in demand right now. If you have some kind of demonstrable experience in engineering or development and you have touched crypto at some point, you're gold dust. And it's hard to find these people right now. How are you finding it?
Absolutely the same thing. So I think historically in fintech in general, it's development engineering has always been the most difficult. And like you say, even when they don't have experience, when it's just they know that the position is in such high demand, they can ask for anything they want, even if it's a smart person with no experience, but that knows that they can probably get some things done. Will still ask for exceptionally more than potentially you would expect because the talent pool is shrinking and shrinking, and there's so many people competing to try to get those same people. Even in a market like Estonia, every time there's a new company that kind of sets up an office here that's in relatively the same business, we end up having to compete with current employees. I mean, because they get offers, because the headhunting starts to become so competitive.
Yeah.
So I think, even in my FX days, it was always those were always the guys that were hardest to get, hardest to keep, and hardest to keep happy. But I agree with you that at the end of the day, kind of crypto is kind of everything most people don't understand about math, plus everything most people don't understand about economics. And so because there's so many challenges, smart people want to solve problems. Yeah. And so there's so many problems that can be solved. I think it does bring people from everywhere, which is a great thing. But a few years ago, that wasn't the case. People were scared to come into this industry. Because they're like, I don't know, what happens if in 2 years everything just stops working or it fails? And that's starting to go away. So hopefully, those talent pools will start to grow. But yeah, it is hard to compete sometimes. No matter what you're offering, there tends to be somebody who might be offering just a little bit more. Somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. And what's interesting is that because we're now a completely remote first organization, so people are everywhere. which is really great for us in that we're able to recruit folks regardless of where they're based. But what that has meant is that talent can be anywhere. So what you would usually remunerate someone for being in a country now is much closer to it being in another country, whereas historically there's been this big gap between the two. So it's been a really interesting time to scale the organization for us. It's been challenging, but it's been amazing to see how even the pandemic has affected it.
Absolutely. I think we started this year with, or probably mid last year, we had 20, 25 people. Now we have 60. And we're scaling up to, over 100 as well. And remote, we have to be remote first nowadays. I think crypto's probably always been a bit remote first. We kind of start, but thank you, COVID, because now, now it's okay. Before it was kind of, I don't know if, we want to go remote first. What's going to happen? What does that say about the company culture? Blah, 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 blah. There was these questions in the office. Yes. Those questions are gone.
They're gone.
It is absolutely remote first. And I think nowadays, if your business can't be remote first, you have a problem.
You got questions. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things Binance has done really well at is demonstrating how quickly you can grow a business being completely remote. And Binance, contrary to what everybody says on Twitter, Binance really is remote. Yeah, there are pockets of folks based in some countries, but it is a remote company and it operates with a complete remote mindset, and it works really, really well. And you've got to change the mentality and the culture of the company to do that, and it can be difficult. You can lose the kind of kitchen water cooler chats that you have when you're in an office environment with people, but you've got to find other ways to bring people together, whether that's like offsites or socials, whatever it might be, but it can be done. And it has really amazing benefits of productivity.
Yeah. I don't like to say good things about Binance because, I own this exchange, but that I'll give them that one. That one I will give them freely. They obviously right from the beginning definitely scaled very quickly with an idea that wasn't commonplace at the time. Yeah. So I'll give them that. That's 1 point I will give them. I don't know. That's still they're still in the negative with me, but
CZ will be pleased because that's probably the first positive thing that you've said in a long time about this.
He has to tweet that one. There's got to be a clip of this. It's going to be memed.
It's going to be memed. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're done. I'm done. Game over. So you talked a bit about this, but I think this is an important one since we're almost done here, and I think people came in late. So do you plan and when to go onto other chains, or I guess connect with other chains, and what chains would be potentially first?
Nice. Okay, so we have a few things planned. We have a chain that may be going live tomorrow, or maybe going live on Monday or Tuesday. We'll let you know about that. It is a chain that we've had really good relationships with from the beginning. They're early investors in us. They're building some amazing stuff. We have Solana, BSC, Polkadot, Cardano, Algorand, Terra, Avalanche. Those are being built right now. In what order those will be coming, I'm not going to tell you. But they are in production in some cases, in testing in others. And it's so important for us to be bringing these out because it just increases the overall usability of the network. You can hold these assets, you can settle these assets across the layer 2 network, you can interact with the DeFi ecosystem for all these assets. So it's almost like we bring a whole community to the Credo network every time we integrate with these layer 1s. And so for us, it is top priority. And you're going to have some good news in a day or two.
Side question to that, because you made it, because we've actually had some news in the public eye from Binance actually recently about a little insight onto how they look at listings. So what, as soon as it reached wallet use, the amount of wallets is one of their main things they're going to look at. So for you guys, is there a metric? So you're looking at maybe 10 protocols. Is there a metric? Because obviously, like you mentioned, same thing at CoinMetro, community is important for us. So it can be a small community for us, but we like to look at community engagement. And that's one of the first things we look at. It's not the only thing we look at, but it's definitely a precursor for us to look at something is community engagement, because in crypto, without a supportive community, it's hard to kind of gain traction. Yeah. And so that's what we look at. So is there something that you guys look at? Is there a metric that you can share of what you look at when it comes to protocol?
Yeah, I mean, we're totally on the same page in that respect, because we look at, all of the various community metrics that help guide us in thinking, okay, what value can we add to the ecosystem by moving fast and supporting that layer 1? And community sentiment, community buzz, the amount of active engagement that people have across various social media channels is important, because that shows how many people are kind of using it. So that is a core part of it. The second thing that we look at is innovation and who is building cool stuff on their layer ones. And there are a lot of layer ones out there that sit in the top 50 of the CoinMarketCap ranking, and they haven't really done that much. They haven't brought much to the market. And this is kind of a symptom in crypto. You raise a bunch of money, then you build your product later. And that is a bit of a skewed way to be innovating. And to be fair, lots of the layer ones have done a great job at that, but others haven't. And so just because they're in the top 50 doesn't mean we're going to integrate with them. We want to see innovation, and we want to see there being an active community of builders or supporters around that layer one. And that's how we'll prioritize them. Eventually we do, because we're agnostic in a way to layer ones, we do want to support the majority of the layer ones that are out there. But we will always prioritize the ones that are making the most headway in the market, because we want to support them in doing what they're doing, which is just growing the overall, pie of crypto and making it much more usable and much more innovative. So if they're doing that, we're going to support them.
All right, there's two questions I'm seeing that I think would be great to end with. We're a little bit over the hour, but if you're willing, there's two questions I think would be amazing. So one touches on a bit that we talked about, but I think we're going to touch on this one again because people that joined late or simply maybe didn't understand the first talk we had about tokenomics. So this is from Mr. S. We'll call him Mr. S. Am I the only one who thinks they skip the important part about tokenomics? For example, the huge amount of investor and team tokens that will be unlocked next year. I'm pretty sure we did touch on this.
I think we touched, we touched the overall theme of it, but let's dive into the detail. This goes back to actually what I just said. Contrary to most projects in the space, we built the product before going out and releasing the token. We didn't go off, crowdfund on an idea, and then spend a couple of years building something that may or may not work. Yeah. We spent 3 years building this, and part of that is fundraising a traditional company, a limited company, that went to the market and said, we're going to take a bet that we can deliver on something truly radical. And in doing so, we raised a significant amount of equity funding. This year alone, we've raised $50 million. But historically, we raised some seed funding to go off and build this. And as part of that, we're rewarding those early investors by airdropping them some Credo tokens. So contrary to what you see in some projects where you just have this kind of team bucket, we have a team bucket and we have an investor bucket. And together, they're not abnormally large versus most layer one projects out there. But we've delineated them to be as transparent, as clear as we can. And the way that those tokens vest isn't in one big chunk. They vest over years on a weekly basis. So you're never getting a very large amount of tokens entering supply. You're getting a slow but steady gradual increase of vested tokens into the supply. Now, from a team perspective, and I think this is what matters because the team portion is the larger portion of that. From a team perspective, we're not an anonymous bunch of builders. We are, a team of seasoned folks that have done other stuff in different industries. We've got track records of taking companies public, doing all kinds of interesting private market exits, and we're building for the long term here. We've put our reputations and our names on the line to build here. And one of the things that we're going to hopefully be doing is building a bit of certainty around what our intentions are with the project. We ain't walking away from this anytime soon. We're building for the long term. And part of that is why we've built the tokenomics model over a 50-year period. So I think people look at the numbers and they go, oh, this percentage seems large, that percentage seems large. There's a reason behind all of this. We've built this company over 3 years. We've built the protocol from the company over a 3-year period. So you've invested a significant amount into that, and we're going to continue doing so. So the unlock that you're seeing will happen slowly and steadily over weekly increments over time. But we very much have built an arsenal of deflationary as well as demand-led tokenomics strategies, such as buybacks on secondary markets, that will help dampen any kind of concerns that the community have around that. So we're very conscious of that. We hear the concerns. And what we want to be a bit more conscious about doing is being a bit more transparent and speaking about this more. I think we've been, as a team, heads down, building and executing. We've got to be a bit more present on forums like this, talking about why certain things are what they are. So expect a lot more of that in the coming months.
Absolutely. One more. We got one more. I'm going to throw this one up. I think it's an interesting one to end the day on. So talking about Coinbase recent acquisition of Bread due to their quote unquote unique expertise in self-custody crypto wallets, and asking how does Credo potentially differ from Bread?
Yeah. Well, what a great name, first of all, right? Bread. The Bread team have a great pedigree in building a very easy to use retail wallet. And if you look at Coinbase, they've done lots of things really well. One of the things perhaps they've struggled at is making their wallet super easy to use. And they kind of built for the crypto natives and tried to reverse into this whole retail market that they've ended up really pioneering and especially in North America, owning really well. And so by bringing the Bread team in, they bring a team in that is really their bread and butter is UI and UX, making super easy to use retail products. And Bread is really a great mobile first user experience when it comes to a wallet. We're different in that we're not trying to build point solutions. We're not trying to build a wallet per se. We built an infrastructure layer that can underpin and power all these different wallets. Now, how people build the UI and the UX on top of that, that's up to them. We've done our first example of what can be built on the Credo Network by launching the web-based app, Credo.network today, that people are using to access the Credo Network. That's our example of what you can build on top of the Credo Network. But people are going to go off and build their own things on top of it and integrate into it in their own native way. So Bread, kudos to what they've built and done. It's a great retail user experience, and Coinbase have clearly seen that. And it was a smart move by them to bring that team in-house to really upskill their UI and UX.
Yep, I think it's, you can look at it as that Credo's building infrastructure so many more breads can be made in a whole loaf of bread can be made in the future on the back of Credo's infrastructure. There's a big difference between building infrastructure in a nuanced market and building a retail specific product for a nuanced market. Yeah, because everybody's going to be doing that. But if you build the right infrastructure, that's you're the Ethereum. You can look at Ethereum as infrastructure. Look at how much has been built on Ethereum versus a dApp on Ethereum. What's been built because of that dApp? Probably next to nothing. But obviously Ethereum has created this massive ecosystem so people can build on. So I think that's a major difference between anything like Bread and Credo. Yeah. I would end on one thing. It's just that I've seen a lot of questions come up again about tokenomics and etc. And I think just from a high level, there's a bit of a disconnect, I think, between rational numerical thinking and the irrational nature of this market. So I can give you one simple example, Dogecoin. So if you look at the numbers and you look at how Dogecoin works and how it's inflationary, except even Ethereum to that matter, up until now, where they're getting closer to becoming deflationary. This market is irrational. If you try to trade it using rational thought, you're probably going down a path that's not going to lead to success. There's only rational thing to understand about this market is you need to look after passive income opportunities. That's the rational part of this market. Everything else is irrational. It's a hype-driven market. It's a market driven by emotions. People like products. They like the people behind the products. They like where they think the product is headed. Tokenomics play a very small role in the overall growth of this market. Very small. I hate to say it because I'm a pretty rational person in general, but this market is not rational.
It's funny, yeah. I mean, look at the Solana tokenomics model. Extremely high pockets of token holders holding huge amounts, but they have performed consistently. They have, demonstrated their ability to execute, to build DeFi ecosystems on top of it, and the token price has performed really well. So there is this disconnect between the cold hard numbers and rational thinking sometimes and what actually ends up happening. And a big part of that is belief in the people and the project. And it's people try and do so-called technical analyses on stock trading. It ain't rational. Nothing in the markets is rational, unfortunately.
And it's a good thing for growth because obviously this irrational market has led to people creating massive amounts of wealth that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to create in a more rational setting. So it's a great thing. Just I think you need to change the way you look at investing in this market because it's not about it's not about the white paper. It's not about the cold hard token. Those things are good to know, to understand how a company is structuring the way they want to see, the way they grow, the way that they are integrating their asset into, whether it be their initial fundraising, whether it be, you know, how they grow their product and their ecosystem. But at the end of the day, it's a lot about emotion. And emotion is driven from the business doing things the right way and getting successful, and the community around it supporting it. And I think that's why community is so important in this. If this market was rational, community wouldn't be as important as it is. So anyway, I'd like to leave it there. Josh, anything else you want to say before we tie it up today?
No, as always, Kevin, it's a real pleasure to be with you here. I hope we can do this more often.
Absolutely.
You know, if anyone wants to get involved with Credo and enter the debate, do follow us on Twitter at Credo Network. I'm also on Twitter at Josh Goodbody. So do get involved, do ping me questions, however hard they are. And yeah, really looking forward to coming back on this, Kevin.
Absolutely. I can't wait for the second and third and fourth iteration as well. Plus with the matching merch, because that has to happen at some point. And yeah, my name is Kevin Murcko, CEO of Coinmetro. You can also find me on Twitter at Kevin Murcko, Telegram at Kevin Murcko. I'm pretty much Kevin Murcko everywhere. That is my real name. So I tend to use it. Anyway, have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend. If you're a Coinmetro fan, you may see my AMA tomorrow as well. Follow us on YouTube at Coinmetro. Make sure you follow Credo as well. Or I don't know which side everybody sees us on, but they're somewhere on the left or right of me. Make sure you follow Josh as well. He's a smart guy. You're going to learn some stuff. And yeah, have a good rest of your day. See you on the next one.